Hi.
Hi.
Are we doing cute little filters? Hello everyone that's joining us.
Yeah, let me get a
Pick
filter.
a cute little filter before we get started.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh
slow down.
oh, not that one.
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
just I'll just keep it no filter for now. Hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us to the Undocumented Filmmakers Collective Artist Spotlight on Instagram live series, which is a monthly 45-minute conversation between artists who happen to share the undocumented experience. This IG Lives provide UFC members a virtual space to share their intersectional experiences, projects, and artistry. The series is sponsored by the MacArthur Foundation. So thank you everybody who's joining us. Amrit and myself are gonna be talking. Just FYI, I sound a little bit hoarse because like my no my voice. We were at Cumbiaton and I was screaming a lot, and so my voice is a little gone. But I saw some UFC members who came through, and I hope y'all have so much fun. But before Emirates introduces themselves, I'll introduce myself really quick. My name is Julio Salgado, and I am a visual artist. I would say, the art that you see behind me, drawings, illustrations, are my main medium of art. But really, I would say I'm a multimedia artist because I have done video work, writing, and any type of medium that I can get my hands on, I'll do it because I think it's important that as undocumented and queer artists, we get to tell our stories, in our own terms, right? And so we have a plethora of ways to do this, right? And so that's me. So I'll let Amrit introduce yourself, and then we'll get started.
Hi. First off, I want to say thank you so much to everyone who's on here. Thank you so much to the MacArthur Foundation. Thank you so much to Andaki UFC for having us. And Julio, I just loved your intro. Thank you for introducing yourself and for just being so freaking amazing. I could not go to the Cumbiathon event either. I'm in the Bay right now for school. I'm so glad that you were able to go and that you lost your voice for the right reason. So glad for that. Hi, everyone. My name is Amrit Kaur. My pronouns are she, her, they, them. I am a storyteller and filmmaker. I'm a South Asian undocumented queer person, and I co-founded a production company and organization called Brown Girl Joy Productions with my siblings Jazz and Amani Kaur, and shout out to them.
Oh, I think we lost Amrit for a little bit. Can folks, is it just me who can't see Amrit? Okay, let's wait for Amrit to come back. In the meantime, as we are talking and sharing like our journey, and the work that we do, feel free to start thinking of questions, and you can put them in there. There you go, Amrit, you're back.
Hi, I'm so sorry. No, I didn't freeze. I'm such a goof. I accidentally closed myself. I was trying to heart something that someone said. I'm gonna stay away from that. Okay. Yeah, sorry everyone. So I'm a co-founder of a production company called Brown Girl Joy Productions. We make a lot of beautiful films centering the South Asian queer diasporas as well as like migrant journeys. So yeah, a little bit more about that later. But Julio, I just wanted to quickly jump in and ask you what was your artist journey like, becoming an artist for you today, as well as like just being an undocumented artist. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think art has always been my way of communicating, with folks. Like literally, when I was a little kid, I was horrible at sports. Like I grew up in Mexico. I was born in Mexico, and like all little boys were always playing soccer, and I
Mm,
was actually forced to join a soccer team when I was a little kid, and I hated it. But, like art was always like the thing that I excelled at, or like the thing that, folks were like, oh my God, like, you have a talent for this. You're a creative kid, right? And when I moved to the US, literally like I love talking and not being able to speak English. I was put in I moved to Long Beach, California, and they didn't have bilingual classes, so they had like the ESL classes, which are
yeah.
still, in English, and they're kind of slower, but like I couldn't talk to the other kids. And I would draw, and then like the other kids would be like, damn fool, you know how to draw, let's be friends. And so like really like it was like really me just trying to make friends, like for reals. Like that's literally how I started sort of like make connecting the dots, right? Like of, oh, like I can communicate. I wasn't like
Yeah.
analyzing it or anything, or but I, looking back at it, I was like, oh, that's what I was doing, right? And a lot of us, that's our way of communicating, right?
Yeah.
That's the way of telling our stories. And so after I went to school, I actually major in journalism. I went to
Oh,
Long Beach City College, then went to Cal State Long Beach. And then after graduating around 2010, we saw this movement, right, that had been happening, in the undocumented immigrant rights movement. And we saw a lot of young, undocumented folks coming out of the shadows. And I felt like nobody told me. I just did it myself. I was like, we need to make sure that this gets documented through art. And so I just started
mm,
making posters, and like, I wouldn't call it posters. It was just like little like drawings that I would post on Facebook. Because at the time, like, Facebook, Tumblr was a thing. I don't think nobody uses
yes.
Tumblr
I use
anymore.
Tumblr
But
too.
like, yeah, like it was just a way of like my wanting to make sure and document what was happening, right? And so like that really started a, I don't want to call it a career, but like really putting like really being serious about an artist, right? Like really calling myself an artist. Like that I couldn't, I didn't, it took me a long time to get there, but like those were the beginnings. And it took community, it took other undocumented, individuals telling me like, oh my God, I feel seen in the artwork that you're making. And so I just did it because I wanted to create, I wanted to tell her stories. And that was my, beginning, my journey. And so, yeah. How about you? Like, I'm so intrigued about this. Like, you started something with your siblings.
Oh, yeah.
That's like amazing.
Yeah,
So
thank
tell,
you.
how'd you get there?
Yeah, thank you. I will answer that. I just want to ask real quick, because I'm always thinking about the idea of being an artist, right, and a filmmaker, and I'll totally get to your question. Let me just ask you real quick. As you mentioned that, I was thinking like, I know that you said that community really helped you, and like just to see that you are an artist and things like that. But what do you remember any distinct moment in the last like 10 to 15 years as you were making this art where you were like, you had a moment where you were like, oh shit, this is going to be my career. Like, this is something that I'm going to be doing. Like, do you remember any moment like that?
I mean, I think it wasn't one moment. It was a series of moments, right? Like, I think the internet really um like lended itself to our movements, right? Like we definitely use the internet as a way to communicate, especially
Mm,
us who can't travel to other countries, right? But even within the US, right? The context, we're talking about from a context of being an immigrant in the US. Just getting messages from people from New York, from Chicago, from North
mm,
Carolina, and they were telling me and messaging me. They were like, "Oh my God, Julio, like, like I see myself reflected in the art." And even like we like starting to organize, with other, using my art as a tool to
yeah.
organize. I specifically remember, shout out to Sonia Guinyanzaka. They are from New York, and they were one of the folks that were, very much involved in organizing a lot of the deportations that were stopped around 2010. And I remember them hitting me up and they were like, we need a poster. And, how art was so important and everybody was doing it, right? And so just getting those messages, I think those were like moments where like I'm like, oh, this is something, right? Like it wasn't planned or anything. And yeah, like it took me a minute to be like, oh yeah, I'm an artist, and this is what I do. But it was those moments. It was the assurance of my community. Thank you for that
Oh,
question.
yeah, of course. I just respect you and like, just love your work so, so much. So I just wanted our viewers to like also get that
Oh,
from you. And so thank you for sharing that. And yeah, and real quick, I'll just answer that real quick too, since you asked it to me. So with Brown Girl Joy Productions, we finally like within the last year just started calling ourselves that. Before we began, like about 5 years ago actually, when my siblings and I as undocumented queer folks, like just started noticing that like as we were trying to create these like films, first off, like I started off as just someone holding a camera. It's like I thought I would be a DP, a director of photography, and like recording things and like going to events and like cutting up some little footage into some little skits and sending it off to people. But it, like about 5 years ago, as the eldest of like four younger siblings, my siblings also started getting older and they started showing interest in filmmaking. And so from that moment, I was like, well, like we already do a lot of stuff as a family trying to survive here and like, trying to keep our family together and like just go to events together, do so much together in terms of social justice. Like, why don't we create art together? And so it was very unintentional and just very organic of like we made our first short film together like in 2019, and it became like a pivotal moment for us to like step back and realize like if we were able to make this film with like literally no resources, and together and like just with all and with so many errors, like so many errors and so many mistakes, like and so much amateur shit, like I was like if we're able to do this now, and like talk about parents being deported and siblings have to like having to survive here in the US and siblings who are South Asian, like what would it look like if we like actually became a thing and like and formed our company and like started working together and examining like the things that we could do. So even now there's sometimes like a lot of setbacks and things like that, but we've I think grown together because we've kind of intertwined our journeys now to like really work towards this company. And I think that like that's really helped. And for us currently, what we do is we create short narrative films at the moment, but our vision is in the next 5 years. We definitely want to incorporate in the next year. We want to start a fellowship that actually helps young South Asian undocumented folks create films over summer and create mentorship programs over summer that give opportunities and just give back to our own communities. And I think for us, like the biggest thing right now is like we're not even worried about other people taking us seriously anymore as younger like undocumented queer artists. We're like, do we take ourselves seriously enough? Do we consider our own joy when we talk about brown girl joy? In the past we've had to do a lot of projects and a lot of little things to just survive and pay the bills, and now I'm trying to shift forward and like not have to worry about paying bills, because it is a real thing, right? As an artist of like, is this going to pay my bills one day? Is this not going to do this? Or like what 9 to 5 job or like part-time jobs can I work to keep doing this? So now we're trying to move beyond that and like and see like how this can be a movement just for us and like just really change the South Asian communities that we're part of. And I am a Punjabi Sikh person. Like I came from India, from the state of Punjab, and my family's religion is Sikhism. And even within Sikhism, like a lot of the work that we're trying to do is uncovering a lot of the taboos, a lot of the homophobia, transphobia, and just even like casteism and a lot of the different issues that are going on within the South Asian and Punjabi communities. And so some of the work we're making is like the first of its kind that folks here have never seen before. Like the recent short film that we just did, Zindagi Dobara, it's called Life Again. We
mhm.
produced in March, and it's going to be coming out in fall. And that film was the first film that I was able to actually make with some sort of a budget. Shout out to La Producción and everyone else, cast and crew. Love y'all. And that film is literally about a South Asian LGBTQ plus intergenerational relationship between an aunt and granddaughter when her parents die. Like, it's just a lot of different things that are going on that we don't often see. And for us, it's also like examining and going beyond representation, but it's going beyond all of those things, you know, because we already see those words, those keywords thrown out, like
Yeah.
representation, visibility, and this and that. For us, it's like, okay, but like, what is beyond that? You know, like, how do
Right.
we properly and intentionally show these folks without further tokenizing ourselves, harming our own communities, and the same folks that we're working with, you know, and the folks who we want watching these films, that we want interacting with these films. And so one of the like big things that we do to ensure that we're not tokenizing folks and that we're not creating stories that are just like buzzwords and keywords, you know, thrown at, like, you know, for folks to like see that we're a diverse company. We want to have like impact strategy with our projects, you know. So what we do is, like, even right now, as I'm editing the film and, like, you know, hiring folks to help me in post-production, we're already like thinking about what impact campaign we want to be doing with it and what kind of extra work we want to be doing. Yeah, Jazz is saying, one of the co-founders, clarity of intention and things like that. So that's stuff that we're thinking about right now. And although we are a near production company together, we've been doing this work for a while now, and I think that we have really, really clear visions and really clear intentions of like where we want to go. And yeah, and so that's let me just sum that up. So yeah, that's kind of it. And right now I'm, as an individual, just really examining that joy aspect, because I've not really had a lot of joy before in my work, because it's always been a
Mhm.
trauma response to like white supremacy and being undocumented and the dangers we face, right? So right now it's like we're almost able to like now move into this new phase of like, we might have money for a project. Like, what do we do when we do have the opportunities to create something that's joyful and something that gives us all hope? Like, what do we do then, you know? So yeah.
You know what you're making me think about too is like the for sure, right? Like really thinking about the content that we put into our work, especially because we bring a lot of the identities or the experiences that we've had as immigrants in the country. One
Yeah.
of my biggest things, like as we were, like I remember back in 2010, again I go back to like the when I got started. One of the things that we didn't want to do, and similar to what you're doing, Amrit, it's like thinking about like how can we not repeat the narratives that we are criticizing, right? And a lot of the times
Yeah.
it's the sadness or this like sad porn that people outside of our communities tend to focus on.
Yeah.
And for us, it was humor. Shout out to Jesus Iñiguez from Dreamers Adrift, who's like my creative partner. And for us, it was that like right, like what is gonna make us laugh? Like what
Yeah.
is gonna make us like not like recreate the things that we like make us cry, but like the joy part. And you know what, like it's something like it could be hard
Yeah.
finding that joy because we're so used to, but I'm so happy, Amrit, to hear that that is like your, I mean, it's in your name, right? Brown Girl Joy. Like that's just so beautiful, to hear. Now in terms of like you mentioning you're, like, yeah, while we like to, like do stuff on our own, there's something to be said about struggling as an artist, that there's no like you could do whatever you want, but it's nice to get paid. It's nice to like,
Yeah.
get some help. What would you say, what are some of the struggles or challenges that you've faced, as you're trying to create this production company? Like, what are some of the biggest journeys? It could be related to your immigration or, maybe
Yeah. Yeah.
something not understanding your story.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking that. I think some of the biggest ones that I was noticing a couple years, like, so right before like the pandemic, is when we were starting to like think about forming a company together. But then of course, you know, the pandemic happened and we kind of like put a pause on it for like the last couple of years.
Hmm.
But right before the pandemic happened, we would try to like, you know, go to like, you know, those like networking mixers and like those like just different events that like you're always encouraged to go to because they're like, oh, like this is the place for you, and networking. My siblings and I would try to go to those like industry professional mixers and like just different things related to, even like when I was an undergrad is kind of like when we started thinking about this. So I was at CSUN, Cal State Northridge, and there would be stuff there, and we would bust our asses to get to like one place and then the next, and like just kind of like doing all this extra work on our own, like to just even like figure out what this world of like filmmaking and just like what forming a company is like, because we don't know anybody like that in our lives. Like my dad is a construction worker. He's a day laborer, sorry, who works like 6 days a week, sometimes 7, and only takes a break just to go to the temple on Sundays, so I never really knew like quote unquote like business people in my life. And so I think that was the biggest struggle, is like not seeing anyone doing what we wanted to do in my communities, specifically like the immigrant South Asian communities. And I think that this also happened at a time where like it wasn't so normal to even be seeing stuff like that on social media, because now it's like pretty common, since the pandemic, like people started picking up phones and like making little TikToks and like how-tos and all these videos.
Yeah.
So we were trying to still do it. It was still very much a taboo. So that would be, I think, the biggest, is like not even knowing like what it looks like to go get into this field. The other biggest thing is at those mixers, those networking events, I can't tell you how many times people did the worst thing of like tokenizing us and like kind of taking the vision of like, ooh, 3 sisters making a project or making something together, and like kind of twisting it into their own little like, I don't know, like perspective, like of like what they could mold us into. So what we like really discovered was that we were not just being tokenized and like kind of being disrespected in a lot of these spaces, and some of them were even undocumented or like BIPOC spaces, because as femme identifying and non-binary folks, like we will have to face those extra layers of things, right? So like just facing that, and just sensing the type of like agendas people would try to put on us and like try to encourage us to do. Like we would always be like, no, our work is very intentional and rooted in not just like attacking like white supremacy, but also like figuring out why there's so much hate and like just disgusting shit in our own communities of being Punjabi, Sikh, like South Asian folks. Like we want to like discover all these other little pockets of oppression that isn't just to do with like white supremacy, because even in our communities we have so much stuff that like we need to work on. And of course a lot of it starts with white supremacy, but then it like goes into our own like little things. So once we would open our mouths and start talking and like really getting into what we were about and what we wanted to do, people would just automatically be like, oh no, they're these type of people. Like they don't want to just be a cutesy little like, oh, film company run by sisters and like, ooh, women, like, like girl boss. It wasn't like, they would see right away, they're like, oh yeah, they're not girl bosses, they're not gonna gatekeep, they're not gonna do this, they're not gonna do that. And so that was the biggest thing, not getting people to take us seriously enough. And then in the last, I think, couple of years now that we have started doing more, definitely I think we didn't like have enough resources in terms of like mentorship and just institutional backing to like really get things started. And we've started to get like supporters now, and like we have our amazing mentors now, Dilo and Sandeep Morrison, shout out to them.
Shout out.
Yeah, and I know you know them too. Yeah, and they worked on our like last couple of projects, and they're working on our next really big project, which is a web series. But before this, it was like we felt really hopeless, and we felt like no one cares and no one is ever gonna like really watch any of our stuff. And it was never about the viewership. It was always of like feeling like we made a difference, even if it was just like one South Asian like teenager who's like, oh, I'm gonna wake up today and not kill myself because I just saw these people on screen who look like me, who sound like me, and who are talking in Punjabi or who are talking in Hindi and saying the same exact things that I've been yearning to say to my parents, or I've been yearning to say to my siblings. And so, yeah, I think those were some of the bigger things. And then, of course, like my own self-doubt, my own like beliefs in myself were sometimes faltered when I would see that other people weren't like believing in me, and that's, I think, but the greatest thing was that I did it with my siblings. And so we always, like, every time we caught each other like lacking in terms of like beliefs and like, confidence, we were like, nah, dude, chin up. Like you need to stay up here. Like you're a bad bitch, do this. Like, oh, excuse me, all these other things. And so I think that helped. And like having
Yeah,
that shared camaraderie and community, like really, really like, you're talking about community, and that's big for us too. Like even Zindagi Dobara, the new film that's coming out, we don't even call it like our own production, like our own film. We call it a community effort because it did take a whole village of people to make this
yep,
happen. People coming together,
agreed.
believing in us, some of who are actually on this call right now, like typing in some little things. Like I see you, Will, Jazz, Amani, all of you. So yeah. And what about you? Like what are some things that have been challenging for you? And I know that your journey is a little longer than mine already, so pick and choose where you feel you want to dive in.
You should call me an elder. It's
No, no,
okay.
no.
I am not just kidding. No, I
I'm an
take it. No, I
emerging
love it.
filmmaker. You're like an experienced artist. That's what I
No,
mean.
listen, I'm, like, I'm in this sort of like phase of my life where like I am becoming, like an elder, and I'm becoming sort of like, look, like seeing she's just seeing like, the younger up and coming, like artists, and just how much like y'all so ahead. Like I was not doing that when I was in my early 20s. I was
But
like
we're
so
only able to
lost,
do
but
it for you. Like we're only able to do it because of people like you. So you
aw.
led movements, like you led us to where we are now, and folks like you. So yeah, shout out to
Oh, that's so sweet. That's so
yeah.
sweet. But so I mean, I definitely for sure. Thank you so much for those kind words, Amrit. And I mean, like if one or two people really, felt inspired, the way that I'm sure like folks will, get inspired when you put out the work, the finalized work, and they are getting seeing your work out there, right? But I think for sure for me, like one of my current like babies that I'm where I've stepped in the role of as an artist advocate, right? So I'm part
Mhm.
of the Center for Cultural Power, and through this organization I started the Disruptors
Oh
Fellowship.
yes, yes.
And yeah, so like the creation of this fellowship was because of those situations, because I too have been in places where like, am I just being tokenized here? Like, you just want to hear my stories, but you don't wanna, invest in my craft. And so,
Mhm.
the center, you can find at at Culture Strike. We really, because we're all a bunch of artists from different from different backgrounds. Fabiana Rodriguez, who started the organization, had that in mind, right? How can we create spaces where we don't only talk about like artists, but like supporting artists, right? And so
Mhm.
we, right before the pandemic, actually, myself and another amazing undocumented writer, Kate Vasco, we were like thinking of ways to, how can we support, the artists, and when before they make it big, right? Before, like in this phase of like, they're creating, but like you said, they need to pay rent, right? And literally, what we need is like that coin, that coin to
Mhm.
be able to like, work on your project, and then, be able to, to meet other folks, right? And so we started planning it right before the pandemic. Like in 2019, we started like dreaming this, idea of the disruptors, and because I've had mentors who work in the industry, and who just give me advice. I'm like, we need more of that, like connections. And so we started the Disruptors. It was for folks who are, want to write for TV, and they just need that space. And so the pandemic hits, and this was initially was supposed to be an in person. Oh, let me see. Sorry, my phone is going off.
Oh,
This was supposed to be an in-person, fellowship. Then the pandemic hits, and all of a sudden, we kind of had to shift into like,
mhm.
doing a virtual a mentorship, and we were like, what does that mean? How would that work? And so we had we were partnering with Topple Productions, which is Joey Soloway's production company, and they connected us with some of their TV writers, some of TV writers that we had, connected with from Culture Strike, and like really people coming out and just saying, how can we help, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's the part, right? Like there are, and I'm gonna be, I'm gonna use my words here, carefully, but like being like direct. There's a lot of nice white people who are in the industry who want to help, but they don't know how to help, or they're like, I'm white, I don't know how to help. The literally one of my biggest things is like you have access to skills, you have access to spaces. We need to bring those people in, and we
Mhm.
need to make sure that you tell us how to get in there, who to talk to, right? And so a lot of us don't have the connections. We don't have the language, because let's be honest, like Hollywood is still run by majority white men, and we don't have the language a lot of the times to talk to those people, right? And so the disruptors, it's not a solution to the
Yeah.
problem that Hollywood has, but it's one solution that we literally want other organizations to really look at their budget and look at how they are not investing in artists, and they're not just bringing us in when they need that movie or that poster, but really think through with creatives, right? And so the applications for we're in our third year now,
Yeah.
and yeah, May 2nd they're gonna drop. And so we're really thankful for a lot of the mentors who come in, and they want to say, how can we help, right? And literally during because of the pandemic, and a lot of us creatives, we're kind of like on our own little spaces, spaces like the disruptors allow us, spaces like undocumented filmmakers collective, right? Like it brings us together to feel less alone, right?
Yeah.
Like, because that's an extra layer. You want to talk to other people who like are the same sort of creative page, and be able to like connect. So yeah, so that's a little bit of disruptors, and the fact that it was co-created by an undocumented person. Like I'm nobody in Hollywood, but girl, I'm gonna like
You
see
are
how we can
everything.
disrupt that.
Yes, yes. And real quick with the Disruptors Fellowship, are y'all gonna, I know that last year y'all did some like, I don't know if you did do like Q&A like webinars or anything. Are y'all gonna do that this year? Like on Zoom or anything?
Yes, we are. So if you follow us, Disruptors Fellowship on Instagram, we're going to be setting updates. But we're going to be doing Kat Evasco, who is also who co-created the fellowship. We're going to have an IG with Q&As on May
Ooh.
26th. It's going to be the day that we're going to tune in live, and if people have any questions this year, for the application, we're doing it slightly different, where people will get a chance to upload a video telling us why they want to be part of Disruptors. And the application, I'm designing it and like making sure that it's super
Ooh.
easy, super accessible, because again, a lot of this fellowships, they you like, it's like you almost have to have the experience that you're looking
Yeah,
for in order to get the experience. And it's like, no, we give us a chance, invest in us. And
yeah.
so yeah, May 2nd, the applications are dropping, and May 26th, we're gonna have an IG live. So stay tuned on the Disruptors Instagram.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I love how you pulled out your calendar right away and you're like, as a matter of fact,
I'm
I
a Virgo.
yes, no, I sense that Virgo energy, and I remember you mentioned it before too. Real quick, not for the disruptors, but in general, and I guess even for disruptors, but like, what are some words of advice you'd give to other undocumented filmmakers and creatives, regardless of like where they're at in their journey and things like that?
Yeah. You know what? Like that's that's something that I get asked a lot. You know,
Mm,
I'm very blessed that people ask me to come and share my experiences, and I get to talk to a lot of like college students. And Will
yeah.
Prada's like, I live with two Virgos. We used to live together. Shout
Oh
out
my
to
gosh.
Will Prada. But yeah, so like I get asked, you know, like how can I get started on my artist journey? You know, a lot of the times there's a lot of challenges. You know, I have to work full time. I have to, you know, go to school. There's many challenges, right? Like
Mm,
that we face. My answer to that, it's like my creative process, my art is where I went to get away from those problems, right? So like I
mm,
always had to draw. I always had to write. Like I didn't really see it as work, even though like, you know, it is work, but when you're beginning, you just have to like let it out. You have to like, you know, create, put it out, whether you're a writer, whether you're an artist, where you're a filmmaker, just look at other people's work to like just absorb all the art that's out there, right? We live in a social media world where we feel like we constantly have to create to show that we are an artist, but I would
mm-hmm.
actually advice, don't share everything that you create, you
Yeah.
know, like be in the moment, like live with it, sit with the work that you create, and give yourself that time and that space to make that art, right? And so yeah, don't feel pressure to constantly be putting out, you know, stuff out there, because if you go with that mentality of like I need to create to show that I'm an artist and to,
Mm,
you know, put my Instagram feed or whatever, you will not enjoy the
yeah.
process. So I would say enjoy the process. What would be your advice to undocumented creatives and any other creatives out there?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I love that you said that last part of Instagram. Because I think that, like, I don't know about you, but I feel like any person who wants to become an artist at some point has the idea of like, should I be posting everything all the time? Because we're
Yeah.
pressured, right? Like we're pressured, and I don't know if you've started hearing this yet, but I've started hearing this thing where folks are like in the creative world are now starting to say like, oh, we're not everyone, but like in some forms, like in some fields where folks are like, your Instagram is now your like business card, you know, and it's like, for me, I'm like, I don't think Instagram is my business card, like as you're saying, because it's like, how is one post going to show you the entirety of my process, right? With if
Yeah.
you're trying to hire me for something, right? Like, how is it going to show you the entirety of my process with creating this
Mhm.
beautiful project that took like 9 months or whatever time, right? Like, that's not summed up in one quick little like 2D image for you to see in a little quick two sentence caption for me. So I completely feel you on that, and I also agree. Jesus, I see you commenting there. Oh my gosh, you're funny. For me, I would say, my advice, if this is to like folks who are just starting out and just, you know, maybe clicking on our little IG live and they're like, oh, I want to see what these like artists are doing. I would say, you know, find your people, find your community, because oftentimes in this world of creativity, whether it's like visual arts, you know, or even just like fine arts in general, a lot of it is full of like white folks, but then also just full of folks who might not have the best intentions for you, or you just might not
Mhm.
feel represented or seen in those spaces, right? Even like sometimes, like I used to, when I was younger, I would go on like Facebook groups. I would join like a few different ones that like at that time I thought like, you know, seemed to like make sense. And like before I kind of figured out like where to go, which is like, you know, with a UFC and like a couple of other places, I would go on Facebook groups. And what I would do is like I would stay in them for like a few months and kind of figure out like which ones that seemed more relevant to me, or which ones just seemed like they had honestly nicer people, like who wouldn't critique like as harshly, right? And then I
Yeah.
would leave the ones that I didn't like and I'd stay in the ones that I liked, because I, again, like as a low income undocumented person, I couldn't travel much myself, so I would
Yeah.
just like be interacting with folks through the screen. And I would say that's one big thing in finding your people, finding your
Yeah.
communities, and also even in the undocu spaces, right? Like if one community is not for you, that's okay. You know, like you, at least you learned something from them. You know, you got some mentorship, whatever, like you got some opportunities, that's cool. And if you want to move on, that's fine too. Like I think that one thing I'm learning as I'm growing older is like it's okay to leave places and leave things that aren't serving you. And I think that oftentimes in this creative world, we're kind of like shoved this narrative of like you need to take everything that comes your way, especially when it has like monetary value. And I think for
Yeah.
me, now that I'm a little bit older, I'm like every opportunity isn't the greatest opportunity, you know, and like I think
Hmm.
that's what I would say. Yeah, and yeah, that would be my biggest thing is like find your community and then learning when to say no, how to say no, and when the right time for you to say no is, and then uh, what was my other one? Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah.
And being able, like you said, like being able to like walk away,
Oh yes, you're able
from
to walk away.
yeah.
Yes, that's a big one.
That, I mean, those, you're just dropping so many gems, and I think again, right, like this is why conversations like this are important, right?
Yeah.
Because, we do live a lot of the times in places where we're only looking at what people are creating and they're posting,
Yeah.
but we're not having conversations, and
Yeah.
like it happens in Twitter all the time, right? We see people just like arguing and going off and just not having those spaces conversations because we have so much in us. Like there's so much anger, happiness, everything, and a lot of the time social
Mhm.
media could be not the best place to have these conversations, right? And so as we're slowly and safely coming out and being able to meet up in person and doing all that stuff, we had Cumbiaton this weekend. I was so happy to just be in a space where we were just being ourselves, like we were not talking about grants or like being undocumented. We were just being ourselves, right? And so like having those spaces, are key, for us to be successful with ourselves, right? Like not whatever success means to you, but for me, it's like, am I happy doing this work? Um, we're gonna open
Yeah.
it up. If folks have any questions, I don't know if folks have written questions here, but as we're closing it down, we're gonna ask if folks have any questions. But maybe before closing it, I'll ask you, Amrit, and like maybe I'll see if I can chime in. But what advice would you give? I love this question, so I'm gonna ask it. What advice would you give to 10-year-old Amrit? What is that advice that you would give yourself?
Oh my gosh, the traumas are unfolding. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I always ask people a similar question like that too. So thank you for asking me. Damn. I think I would tell my younger 10-year-old self that I think at that time I was like middle school maybe. Yeah, middle school. Going through a lot of bullying, going through like a lot of just like isolation, just a lot of
Mm,
that. I think I would tell myself like to not give up and like things do end up okay and like things do
mm,
end up working out in some ways in the end. Even though I'm not at the end, like I have a more like I think mature outlook now as I'm getting older at like even things like depression and like,
yeah.
childhood traumas and like continuous traumas that happen like as you go through life, right? So I think I would just tell my younger self like yo, things get better, like just keep going, like it's all gonna work out and like it's all gonna happen in the best ways possible when you don't even think about it or imagine it, yeah, so that's what I would tell my younger self. And what about you, Julio? What would you tell your younger 10-year-old self?
I mean, I would tell my young self to chill.
Oh yeah,
Like
that's a big one.
I think, yeah, like I think because, I found out at a very young age that I was undocumented, right? Like
Yeah.
I think I was like 11 or 12 when, like you kind of like, oh, my life is gonna be hard. And like there was, and as I was growing into teenagehood, right? Like thinking about college and future and like this and that, like things, like I would tell 10-year-old Julio, like things will happen when they will happen.
Yes.
And you just need to chill and enjoy yourself because like it's really, and I think about especially like the queer little Julio, and like and how it was like so like thinking it was bad and all these
Yeah.
things, right? And like
Same.
thinking about like the things that kids are hearing nowadays, like there's legislation and like don't say gay, like all this stuff, like yo, it's gonna be, you're gonna find people in your life that are gonna protect you and they're gonna hug you and they're gonna like be there for you. So that's what I will tell younger Julio. Jesus, Julio can chill. It's your Virgo energy.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah.
Jesus, and all my All my former roommates are here. Will and Jesus. Okay, we have
That's
questions.
funny. Me
Um,
too. I
do
feel
you
like
want?
that first one of like artistry, like at what point did you become an artist, kind of, unless you want to go into it?
No, go for it. Go for it. You want to answer that question from Mario Torres Torres?
I am good. I think I would love to go to Edgar's question because we did like briefly go over that if that's cool.
Yeah.
So Edgar, shout out to Edgar for being on this live. Edgar asked, "How do y'all overcome your writer's block?" And Julio, I'll let you go first since you talked about Disruptors Fellowship.
Yes. So I think that's a really good question. For me, like I look, I mentioned earlier, like right, like if you're a writer or whatever field you want to get into, like look up the people that you admire.
Mm,
And for me, I go and like read one of my favorite artists. What were their inspirations, right? One of my favorite artists, MIA, who like I use her quote. I'm constantly going to her videos. I just like the artistry behind that, artist is just so magnificent. And so like whenever I'm like I feel like I have some kind of writer's block, I go and watch my favorite MIA videos. I just feel that she came like she I learned of her when I was still in community college. And, like I remember her first song, Galan, and like really reading about her story as an immigrant artist and, how she was talking about global migration and putting it on a pop song. Like that to me was amazing. And so like going to her work is to me always like something that I love to do. What about you? What do you do when you get writer's block?
yeah, so similar to you, I also go to like folks's like first off, I'll take a quick break because I know that like nothing's gonna get done with me berating myself or like talking to myself and like just trying to figure it out. It's not like I'm gonna
Hmm.
magically come up with the answer as I'm like
Yep.
just constantly like in my own head. And so one of the like advices that I got growing up, which I never took seriously until now that I've like started to write longer script like screenplays and scripts and things like that is like to take a moment like take some time away from the screen. Like I was like, man, those people, they're ramps. Like I got like younger me would always be like, let me drink that big five energy thing and like just go. Now I'm like, no, it's real. Like stepping away from the screen, or
Hmm.
whatever you're writing on your iPad, whatever, like putting that away and like coming back to yourself as a person. You know like really really helps. And one thing that I do sometimes is like I'll create like for each specific project, whatever it is, or if it's a free write, like I'll create like three rituals like for myself that I'll do before I begin. And I will and then and like one of those I will choose to do in between, like if I'm like, oh, I'm gonna take a quick break to like reground myself. So I'll use one of those rituals, whatever it is. It could be like, as simple as like refilling my water, like staying hydrated, or like, which I need to do. um, like like going to stretch, whatever it is, like, taking a bathroom break, like I'll do that. And
Yeah.
then I'll sometimes even go like what you're saying, where you go to your like favorite or your inspirations, like, social media, you watch videos, whatever. I actually do that too, where currently what I do when I get writer's block is like I'll go to Adrienne Murray Brown's Instagram,
Hmm.
and she's a great like theorist and
Yeah.
creative person. And so like for me, I'll go to her Instagram, and she posts like the funniest memes every single day. Like she just posts like a group of 10 of them. And I'm just like, I would have never imagined someone like her, who's written books, who's like done amazing work, like to be writing memes, or sorry, not writing memes, to be posting stuff. And so like when I
Yeah.
see that, I'm like, it's gonna be okay, because if this person is out here posting memes and laughing about, like all this stuff while they're doing stressful work, I can do it too, and I'll be okay, and I'll get a good laugh out of that, and I'll come back, and then I'll be like, I'm ready to go, or I'll take a break and start the next day again. So that's what I do right
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's as simple as that, right? Like being like stepping away and like being kind to yourself because like writers and it's just creatives in
Yeah.
general, like we need to keep ourselves fed and hydrated in order to to do that. Jesus says, when I feel stuck, I take a shower. I don't
So
know why. Yeah.
yeah. it's scientifically proven to help you. So I don't know the science behind it, but I know it's proven. So you're doing good. Yeah, I let me move on to
Yeah.
Jesus actually asked Julio, when is full length documentary of your life coming out?
Jesus, you're here and you're my co-producer for that, so you let me know. So, I mean, thank you, thank you for bringing that up, Jesus. But I mean, it's funny. So, so Jesus and I'm gonna, put him on blast since he's putting me on blast here.
Yeah.
Jesus and I met in college, years ago. And, he's been my creative partner ever since we started with Dream of the Drift. We would like literally Jesus would have like his flip camera, like those old like
Yeah.
school flip
Yeah.
cameras, and that's what we would use, right? And so I think Jesus is like he's like the brother I never had, and literally who has known me, he knows me. He's seen me in my lows and in my highs. And when I had the opportunity to show some artwork at the Smithsonian, she has artwork at the Smithsonian,
Yes.
and yeah, you know what? We have to give ourselves flowers. But that happened, and it happened during the pandemic. The show opened during the pandemic, and so I had the opportunity to document this process. And I was like, Jesus, you're the only one who knows me, and you're the one who's gonna direct this, and I'll help you produce it. If Lady Gaga can self-produce her
You're
documentary,
like, I can do
I'm
this
like,
too. Yeah.
I'm like, we're gonna produce a little film. And so, like Jesus, like, we both went. We went out to DC. We took our careful steps because this was in November, where people like in November of 2020,
Oh yeah.
people were still a little beginning to kind of like, all right, if we protect ourselves and quarantine when we get there, like we did all those things, right? So we were able to film in the Smithsonian, and between Jesus and I, like sort of like created this timeline of my work, and it was beautiful to create with your best friend and to put it out there. And so we did 10 years. So I don't know, Jesus, maybe the next 10 years keep putting together, like okay, so this is the one person that I trust to do like the follow up and the next film of my life. I can't believe I'm talking about this, but
Oh, you're
again, we
manifesting
need to be
it.
the ones behind, huh?
You're manifesting it. Yeah.
Yes, manifesting it. We need to be the ones because listen, and the reason why I'm very about this is because a lot of the times it's not until like artists of color are dead
Yeah.
that then others, a lot of times white institutions, museums, then they tell their, the narrative. Like, nah, I'm still alive. Like, I'm gonna tell my own narrative while I'm still here,
Yeah.
but yeah. I'm gonna ask the next question, and then you can answer it before because we're 6:53. Oh my
Yeah.
God, where did time go? So what Nirav asked, what creative inspirations, what inspires your work beyond your medium of art? Do you wanna?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that, Nirav. Nice to see you here. What creatively inspires or influences me beyond my medium? Okay, so I am gonna take that as like anything aside from filmmaking. So for me, the biggest thing that like right now that I'm really intrigued and like really excited with is like always trying different types of South Asian food.
Mm,
Like I mentioned, I'm Punjabi from the state of Punjab, which is in the northern part of India, and we're primarily vegetarians. And like we
mm,
eat like we eat extravagant meals, but very simple meals, like very hearty soups and like, filled with a lot of veggies and things like that. So for me right now, like I'm trying to like South Asia is just huge and there's so many different cultures, ethnicities, languages, like food. And so I'm trying to like expand my taste palette to be just broad and just different in like trying different types of food because I feel like as someone who's already disconnected from being in that region, right? Like the next best thing is like trying the food and like trying different types of just glimpses of different like cultures and things that come from the food that like has a lot of masalas, like spices, and just like just giving me a lot of different aromas. Like I'm a
Mm.
foodie, and I just love when like food comes out of a restaurant and like you see like the steam from the rice and the soups and like all that stuff. So for me, I get a lot of happiness and inspiration from trying different types of food. And right now my thing is like being intentional with trying South Asian foods. And I think
Mm.
that is helping me actually as an artist, because I'm getting to of course, like food is just one thing, and it's not going to tell me exactly everything about that culture, that is that group of folks, but it's definitely giving me like a lot of just insight into like the different flavors and the different distinct like things that have that are in each region and things like that. So that's one of the biggest things, because with my work I want to just not put everybody under the South Asian like umbrella, because it's like
Yeah.
it's a broad umbrella. I know that we have to use it here in the US because it's like South Asian, like I'm that type of brown person from that coast, or from that region. Like so I get that, but I'm trying to expand my work and I'm trying to show folks like what different like the vast differences in the South Asian community is. And so that's one
Yeah.
thing. And then the other thing, because I know we're running out of time, I really really love to discover new music on Spotify. When I'm driving, like I love to do the I don't know what it's called, like the discover thing, and I listen to all types of music, just not opera. It's just, it hurts my ears. But then, like shout out to folks who do opera, because we need vocals. And like
Yeah.
so I that's kind of like what I've been doing right now, is like I have been seeking inspiration from different types of things. And because I think
Mhm.
filmmaking is like a huge medium that includes so much in it. And so I just
Yeah.
want like little bits and like little glimpses and pockets of joy from different little things. What about you?
I mean, I mentioned MIA, and yeah, I mean, music, I 100% agree. Music to me is, I mean, I'm wearing a Nirvana shirt.
Yeah.
Like, even though I saw his comments, you're a whole fan. Courtney Love, is another one of my, favorites. But music, like, I literally, like, I'm currently one of I'm about to embark in like a big project, which is graphic memoir, which is
Ooh.
specifically about the story of my uncle, my tío Chicho, who passed away in 2018. But my uncle was a huge influence because he was the first gay man I ever met, and so like he sort of like opened the conversation of being queer in our family. And so as part of that process, I'm putting together playlist of my youth, the time, when I was 17, 18, 19, which was, the early 2000s, 2000, 2001. And I'm just going back to the music that I was listening to from like Linkin Park to
Oh,
like,
Lincoln Park. I like Lincoln Park.
to
Yeah.
like Missy Elliott, like all the music that was really, like that was specific from a specific time in my life. And she's like curating this playlist of the early 2000s, that bring me joy. So yeah, music, we have that in common. And with that, you want to close us, Amrit, if there's any more
Thank you.
question?
Yeah, thank you so much, Julio, for these amazing combos. And I know that like it was an hour. It felt so hearty, so great to just sit with you and like have these combos and have interactions with folks online. It's just so beautiful to see social media being able to put us all together like
Yeah.
this. With that, y'all, our amazing artist spotlight for April has come to an end. But stay tuned and follow the Undocumented Filmmakers Collective on Instagram. Follow myself. Follow Julio. Please subscribe to our various social media pins, websites, and then for UFC. Please support our work. This would not have been possible without community donations, artist donations, and thank you so much to the MacArthur Foundation for supporting us. And please subscribe to the Undocumented Filmmakers Collective newsletter. We have an external newsletter that goes out pretty regularly on a monthly basis. So subscribe to that. And yes, Lydia, thank you so much for adding those. And stay tuned for the next IG Live. It's going to happen next month. And you'll have a few, amazing artists as well. And thanks again, like I said, to the MacArthur Foundation. For more information on the amazing Disruptors Fellowship that Julio mentioned, please go to artistdisruptors.org or their IG page, which is at Disruptors Fellowship. And then also follow Julio, the amazingness, that they present at Julio Salgado 83. And please follow me at Brango Joy and at Black_Viper 96. And we'll be seeing you next month. Thank you for staying tuned and for supporting us through everything.
Thank you. Thank you, Amrit.
Yeah, bye everyone.
Bye.